The following is from the Melodramatics podcast, where we discuss all things theatre and drama. So if you like theatre, stage, drama, films, check us out on Spotify, YouTube, and all the other streaming platforms that I'm not going to go through. Hey guys, this is You Can't Rewrite Theatre, and today we're looking at Hamilton. So Dia, tell
Yes.
me about Hamilton.
Certainly. So, Hamilton is an American musical created by Lin-Manuel Miranda that tells the story of founding father Alexander Hamilton from his arrival in America from the Caribbean to his death. With a vibrant cast made in an array of people of color and songs inspired by American rap, the production highlights America as a country of freedom, independence, and immigrants, where anyone can be a new man.
Beautiful.
In New York, you can be a new man.
And if I go on to Wikipedia,
Isn't that where Dia was
I'm
just
going
on?
to find...
I wrote that myself,
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Alright, good, then you can leave that in.
Yes.
Okay, so obviously Hamilton, it's a bit difficult to rewrite this one, guys. Because we have to muck around with like Hamilton stories and all. So we decided that the better idea would be to pick a different historical figure and tell their story in the style of Hamilton. So who should go first? Okay.
Why don't I go first? I
Okay,
always
dear, you can go
last.
first.
Yeah, Dia is last.
Yeah, I'm always the lucky last one. Okay, so I wanted to bring Hamilton a bit closer to home. So I went with an Australian historical figure. Does anyone know a man called William Buckley?
Sounds
Yes.
familiar, but I don't know.
I believe he owns PWS, which is a small bottle shop down the road.
No, different one. So pretty much, William Buckley was an English convict who was transported to Australia, escaped, and was given up for dead while he lived with the Aborigines for many years.
He's the guy who invented the cheeky squire.
No. So the term Buckley's hope pretty much, or Buckley's chance, pretty much came from him because he was gone for like 30 years and he was pretty much thought for dead, and then one day he just popped up again. It was like, what? Yeah, so pretty much
It was like a dad like going to 7-Eleven in the middle of the night, just...
kinda, but a convict escaping from yeah. Anyway, so obviously, like Hamilton, it'll be like his life called, it'll be called Buckley. So William Buckley was born in 1776 in the UK, and he died in 1856 in Hobart, falling out of his gig, which is essentially a small carriage, which is surprising considering like
Well,
his
that's
life.
that's what they'll have you believe.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
So William Buckley arrived in Australia in October 1803. He was anchored near the modern day Sorrento, in a new settlement called Sullivan Bay. That settlement lacked fresh water and had poor soils, so the guards decided to abandon the site and move on. So after hearing the settlement was about to move to Van Diemen's Land, which is Tasmania, on the 27th of December 1803, Buckley and 3 other convicts ran away into the bush.
I'm
Now,
sure
back
the
then-
3 other convicts were fine.
Yes. So pretty much back then, a lot of the time, prisoners were stationed in open air prisons, which is pretty much they would just had irons attached to their legs. So, which made it very easy to run away. So, one of the convicts was shot and severely injured, and the others made their way around Port Phillip Bay. They split up in the vicinity of Melbourne. The other convicts went northeast, hoping to reach Sydney, which they thought wasn't as far as it was. Turns out it was actually around about 1,000 kilometers away.
One plane ride, you'd be fine.
Yeah, well, they didn't have planes back then.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's their fault for not planning right.
Yeah. Anyway, so they were found and killed and all that. Buckley, who was tired and dehydrated, continued around the bay, so he decided not to go to Sydney. Several months after his escape, he met with a group of Ratharong women. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. He had taken a spear used to mark a grave as a walking stick. The women befriended him when they recognized the spear belonging to a relative of theirs who had recently died, and they invited him back to their camp. They believed him to be the returned spirit of the former tribesmen, and he was joyfully welcomed and adopted by the group. So for the next 32 years, Buckley continued to live along the Wathaurong people on the Bellarine Peninsula. He was treated with great affection and respect. He became, I can't pronounce this, Neurongatia. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that. Who's pretty much a person of considerable respect among his people. And
Like
his
me.
voice was, and his voice was influential in deciding matters of war and peace, even though he was a white man. He had at least 2 Aboriginal wives and almost certainly a daughter by one of them, which was pretty interesting. On July the 6th, 1835, William Buckley appeared at the campsite of John Batman's Port Phillip Association with a party of Aboriginal people. He had seen a ship. He wore kangaroo skins and carrying Aboriginal weapons. He walked into the camp. The 3 European men at the camp saw him and were like, "What?"
It's like, I'm just heading home after hunting.
Yeah,
You guys want anything, kangaroo?
After 32 years, they fed him and treated him with kindness. Buckley showed them the letters WB William Buckley tattooed on his arm. He was scared of being shot because runaway convicts were often shot. So he told them he was a shipwrecked soldier. But a few days later, he revealed his identity. And to the amazement...
So he wasn't good at holding a secret.
No. But a few days later, he revealed his identity to the amazement of everyone. In September the same year, he was granted a pardon in Tasmania. And in 1836, he was given the position of interpreter to the natives. So, yeah, that's pretty much Buckley's story. And the reason I chose it is because I feel it's interesting. Like, it's a story that not many people know. And he was very influential as well. He definitely sort of was the first person to sort of establish, the first white man to establish a sort of connection to the Aboriginal people, and, you know, was treated them humanely and they treated him humanely. And yeah, it's definitely, I feel it definitely unites the country and shows the Australian sort of ideas that, you know, we're all together in this. Like in Hamilton shows that, you know, they're all from all over the place and they all love their country. I feel like it has a very similar message in this. So that would be how I would rewrite Hamilton.
And how would you stage it?
How would I stage it? Pretty similar to how Hamilton staged.
Bare stage.
Yeah, but instead of like sort of the wooden planks and all that, I would have it more sort of bush related. So like Hamilton takes place in the American War of Independence, which America was already, you know, it's in New York, so it's already a city on its own, whereas William Buckley's story takes place more in the Australian bush, when Melbourne was still sort of becoming a city. So I definitely have it more rural looking than that. Yeah, and definitely have some Aboriginal culture involved. So
Good. I like it. Probably some Aboriginal actors as well.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, Lauren, tell us your historical figure.
No, I'm not going to. I'm going to read a few lines first and see if you can guess who they are.
Ooh, I like a challenge.
And I just want to note,
I'm a real sore
make a
loser.
disclaimer that I don't hate this person and do not wish what happens in my story to actually happen to her.
Ooh.
What? Okay.
This story gets bloody, guys.
Maybe.
This historical figure is still alive.
So she was born in Wales in 1961. Her father was a psychiatric nurse. Her mother worked for the Salvation Army. She contracted bronchopneumonia at the age of 5, and her parents brought her to Australia to give her a better chance of life.
Kim Kardashian.
Oh, I think I know who this is.
So we know her story, how she came to politics and became the first female Prime Minister of Australia. But what really happened when she left office?
Julia Gillard. I knew it. As soon as you said Wales, I was like,
I think it's actually Tony Abbott.
No, her name is Julia Gillard.
Yeah, you're right.
So-
Julia Gillard actually has a spine.
yes.
Okay. She's the 27th Prime Minister of Australia, but her tale is more sinister, more man-hating than we know, and this is her story as imagined by me. So we're going to skip all the politics and the boring stuff.
This is fictional or?
Yes. So
Okay.
we're going to reimagine what happened to her once she
But it is in the
stepped
style of
down
Hamilton.
as Prime Minister. Kind of.
All right.
I mean,
I'll
I
allow
didn't
it.
really know what to do in the style of Hamilton, so I just rewrote Julia Gillard's story.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And you can get over it if you don't like it, because there's no hard feelings here from me. So, yes, politics are boring, so we're going to fast forward to 2013, the aftermath of Julia Gillard losing her Prime Ministership of Australia. After her defeat and immediately resigning from politics, Gillard fell off the face of the earth. Although cheerful in congratulating Rudd on winning the leadership vote and taking over her, she was not okay. Behind her public composure, she was crumbling. Her partner, Tim Matheson, well, he left her for a younger man. Turns out he's a hairdresser, so he's gay.
We always knew it.
Obviously. So he fled to Paris with his new lover.
Harry.
And Gillard had no children, so she was all alone. She didn't make any public appearances, didn't attend press conferences or gatherings or charity events, all the usual stuff that you would expect of her.
She didn't tell any men she won't be lectured on misogyny from men.
Secretly. She changed her name to Eileen, which is her middle name, and she returned to her family home in Adelaide and bought 6 cats. The media speculated that she'd passed away and began a rumour that she was in fact dead. And of course, this rumour worked out in her favour, helping her assume her new identity as Eileen Gillard. 6 months later, Gillard, now Eileen, had formed a small army of women. An army who, like her, hated men and wished to see them wiped from the face of the earth. And what are they called? They're called Women First, and Pauline Hanson is her right-hand woman.
Oh,
There's
okay.
I'd like to see their policies.
I mean, Julia Gillard and Pauline Hanson, do they need policies? Can't they just make it up?
Fair point.
So Women First became infamous for their derogatory and defamatory speeches about men and their violent acts to rid men of the earth. Now, the first act was committed by Gillard, who burnt down Matheson's hair salon.
This is exactly what I'd expect of someone from Adelaide.
Yeah. Eventually, Gillard's army got so big that there was a war between them and an all-male armed forces who, of course, were paid by the Prime Minister Abbott to remove the women from the streets.
Goddamn patriarchy.
And on the front line, Gillard and her women, they took out most of the men, but Gillard was shot dead on the 3rd day of battle, and the women disbanded, leaving her to bleed out on the streets. Following Gillard's death, the Australian public voted to make a new law that prevented women from serving as Prime Minister to stop another war like the one that Gillard started. Gillard was recognised as an Australian legend, kind of like how we think of Ned Kelly, but then over time she eventually became a mythical figure, and so people wondered, did it really happen? Was she a real person? That kind of stuff. And that is her story.
I wish that actually happened.
What do you mean actually happened, dear? Don't you remember the gender wars of 2016?
You know what? I really don't. I must have been out of it the whole time. Wow. A mythical figure. I like that.
Us
I like
men used to get shot and pull out tampons and stick them in the wounds.
You men are disgusting. No wonder we made a war with you.
Disgusting.
By the way,
Disgusting.
guys, pro tip, if you ever have diarrhea, just stick a tampon up there and go about your day.
No, that keeps it. No,
That would
don't
be
do that.
disastrous.
It keeps you corked, guys. Keeps
Don't
you
li-
corked.
You
Okay,
definitely get toxic shock syndrome.
word of advice: don't listen to Benji. Don't listen to his advice. It's not good.
Yeah.
It never works.
Yeah, never
I'm,
listen to
Everything he says
anything
is
I say.
satire.
I'm speaking from experience here. You know, don't listen to him.
All right, guys. So my version of Hamilton is called Lee. And
Oh yeah, mine's called Eileen.
sorry. Oh,
Mine's
yes.
called Eileen
Okay.
because Julia changed
yeah.
her name.
I got it, yeah. So we meet our protagonist outside a bar. His beard is thick and lovely. This is Robert E. Lee. That's who the story was. That he was a Confederate general during the Civil War, and he fought
the
on the
war.
side of the Confederacy to keep the slaves. But I'll tell you something. Recently, I was going through the attic of my house, yeah, and the previous owner, his great
You have an
grandfather,
attic?
yes. For the purposes of this story, I have an attic. And I found a journal from like the owner's great grandfather, who was he was Robert E. Lee's best friend, and he told the real story of Robert E. Lee. So
Oh, I see.
that's what I'm revealing here on the podcast, and I'm going to do it in the style of Hamilton. This is a very controversial.
Very.
There's a lot of things that history got wrong about Abraham Lincoln, Robert E. Lee, and Stonewall Jackson. But we'll address it. We'll address it as it comes. Yeah. Robert E. Lee has always had in the back of his mind the ideals that he wanted to free the slaves and marry his true love, Thomas Jackson. He also thought that women are the same as men and should be able to vote. We find them at a bar where Thomas Jackson has told them they need to meet a man who shares their ideals. In the bar, the two men meet Abraham Lincoln. The three of them talk and agree that they want freedom for the slaves, civil rights for the slaves, the rights to marry any man or woman a person wants, regardless of race or sexual orientation, as long as they're adults. None of that weird stuff that they do in the South. And women's rights to vote. Lincoln explains that if he were president, he could make this happen. However, there is no way the southern states would allow it. Lee and Jackson are surprised at how open-minded Abraham Lincoln is. Get it? Open-minded? Because he was shot in the head.
Too soon.
And this is the sort of low-hanging fruit that you can expect from this story, by the way, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Jackson says that if Lincoln was president, he could force the southern states to do it, but Lincoln knows that would only lead to war. But then he thinks, possibly war would be the best idea, but it's a war that the North couldn't win. The South greatly outnumber them. Robert E. Lee suddenly has an idea. What if him and Jackson rose through the ranks of the Southern armies to become generals, and then made sure the South lost? The South would believe they fought well and lost, and then they would have to answer to the president's commands. Lincoln says they'd have to make it convincing, they'd have to win almost all the battles of the Civil War, and then lose a few key battles that would result in the South losing. The three agree to a plan. Lincoln will become president and start the war to free the slaves. Meanwhile, Jackson and Lee will rise up through the military and become generals. First, they free the slaves. Next, men and women's rights to marry each other, members of the same sex. And finally, women's rights to vote. The pair ask Lincoln why he wants to do this and why he wants to help them. Lincoln explains that Lee and Jackson are not the only two that enjoy the company of men. He also explains that if his bitch wife drags him to another theatre performance, he wants someone to shoot him in the back of the head. So, he wasn't a big fan of theatre. But he was the
like
first
our
president
podcast
to be
then.
inducted into Wrestling's Hall of Fame.
What?
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln was an amateur wrestler. Over the coming years, their plan plays out. Lincoln becomes president and a very good vampire hunter in private.
Like the
Is there a
stupid
movie
film.
about that?
Yeah, there is. Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter.
The southern states go to war, and Robert E. Lee and General Stonewall Jackson become generals. However, Robert E. Lee is a little bit uneasy with how well the plan is going. The following scene takes place midway through the play.
Oh god, okay.
So, yes, Lauren, if I can get you to read the
Put on my narrator's voice.
the stage notes. I'll play Robert E. Lee.
And I'll be the real boy.
and-
So I'll be Stonewall Jackson
And you'll
then?
be Stonewall Jackson. I've abbreviated to just Jackson in the script.
Yes.
We're sort of casual in this.
Alrighty.
Take it away, Lauren.
The stage is set up like a wartime camp. In the middle of the stage is a large white tent. The fourth wall of the tent has been taken away to allow the audience to see. There is a table and bed in the tent. Upon the table are battle plans and a Confederate flag. General Lee is looking over battle plans. He appears stressed and keeps drinking his whiskey. General Lee, there's someone to see you.
Tell them I'm not to be disturbed.
Enter Stonewall Jackson.
General Robert E. Lee.
Well, I do declare, General Thomas Stonewall Teddy Bear Jackson.
Both share a passionate kiss.
I like our beards.
Lee, I've heard you're unwell. I came as soon as I could.
Not physically. The illness that plagues me is that of worry. What if the Southern people are not the most progressive people on Earth?
Imagine it, Lee. African Americans running businesses, walking down the street peacefully. Homosexuals showing love and affection out in public. That is the true South. This is the America we're fighting for. One day the people of the South will have statues of us making love and they'll say, there they are. The Robert Lee and Thomas Jackson, the two lovers who set the slaves free and made it legal for men to marry other men. They certainly wouldn't raise statues of us in the 1960s as a racist response to a movement wanting to grant black Americans the same right as their white counterparts.
Well, if that ever did happen, those statues should be torn down. As every Southerner knows, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness means for everybody, be they black, gay, female, native, immigrant.
Jackson points to the Confederate flag on his uniform.
And one day soon this flag will stand for the rights of all those people and certainly not racist inbreds.
Oh, is it warm in here? You know how it turns me on when you talk like that. Come here, General, and show me why they call you Stonewall.
What do I have to say then? I'm gonna mount you like Washington crossing the Delaware.
Oh, Lordy!
Stonewall Jackson picks up General Robert E. Lee and passionately places him on the table. They rip off their uniforms in haste. They make intense, graphic, and passionate love on top of the Confederate flag. As the scene reaches its climax, both men arrive on the Confederate flag.
The British aren't the only ones who came.
Oh my god. Benji! What? Why do you hate the South? Do you want them to just think, oh my god.
I'm telling the true story of the South.
Oh,
Benny, I want to
God.
know, do you have a thing for homosexuals?
Apparently I do.
Every scene where the characters are straight, you change it so that they're homosexual.
I just feel that Robert E. Lee and General Stonewall Jackson were quite
You just
fond
have-
of each other.
A vivid
Oh.
imagination.
I believe we're only halfway through the scene though, guys.
Oh, really?
Yes.
There's another one?
See?
No.
No.
Hmm?
That's all I got.
Yeah, same.
Wait, let me just check. Wait, I'll just share my screen, okay guys? And you can just cut out this part here, yeah?
Yeah.
No, keep it in.
Okay, so it's like there is where we're up to.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Take it away, Lauren.
The sweaty, heaving men fall on the table and hold each other in a loving embrace. They place the Confederate flag over their manhood.
Why was this ever made illegal?
Sweetie, you know people fear the other. They fear what they don't know.
Well, we'll change their hearts. If we don't fight for this, gay marriage might not be legal until June 26, 2015 in America and December 9th, 2017 in Australia.
Why Australia?
I want to take our honeymoon there.
They stay for a bit.
Well, let's get up. I've brought us tickets to the theatre. There's a new play starring John Wilkes Booth.
Ah, John Booth, he'll be remembered as a beloved and great actor.
Jackson pours a drink for himself and Lee.
Let's toast to freeing the slaves, black civil rights, women's rights, and gay rights.
They toast. Unfortunately, everything does not go to plan. As Stonewall Jackson dies on the battlefield, a bereaved Lee makes sure the South loses in memory of his best friend and lover. He meets with Lincoln after the war. Lincoln tells him now that he's freed the slaves. He plans to tell the Congress that equal rights shall be granted to black people, women, natives, and gays. But first, his wife's dragging him to the theatre. Lincoln gets his wish to be shot in the back of the head during the performance. A broken and sad Robert E. Lee lives out the rest of his life knowing he failed in getting equal rights for all.
I will take my 6 Tonys now.
Oh
That
my
is
god.
so sad.
The South are going to murder you in your sleep.
Good, good.
I don't think they even need to do it in his sleep, though.
Well, they're going to do something. What did we think of Lee and American Tail? As I said, you have this vendetta against the South that I don't quite understand.
I just think they're horrible human beings, and I was, showing this to make them better people.
Well, okay. And you know what? I still think that it's... One thing that Hamilton's criticised for heavily is its depiction of the Founding Fathers being of African-American descent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is minor in comparison to...
Well, I imagine that Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson will be played by African-American actors.
That's fine. The main issue is... You know what? I'm just... Yeah, I'm all for it, but I just think you're going to get a lot of backlash.
It's okay, guys. Thank you. We can make this happen, though.
I really don't want to.
No. I
Why?
never want to go and see that.
Is the poster going to be like cum stains on the Confederate flag?
Oh my god. Yes. That's what it's going to be.
Oh, God.
No, the cum spells out Lee.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I'm definitely not seeing that.
Okay, so Lauren.
Yes,
Mel has sent you her beautiful performance
she has.
and her lovely take. Let's hear it.
All right. It's called Hanoi Jane the Musical. I think that's how you pronounce that word. Musical theatre show revolving around the life of Jane Fonda. Jane is to be portrayed by either an American actor or, in an ironic twist, a Vietnamese actress. The songs of the theatre revolve around the films Jane was working on at the time, whereas the action focuses on her works as an anti-war and feminist activist.
Oh, does that mean we get to see Barbarella?
Oh, don't you love Barbarella?
Musical theatre style is typical song tune style. Think Sondheim or Ziegfeld. Songs are named after Jane Fonda's films.
So one would be Barbarella.
As the musical continues, the songs named after her movies start to parallel her life more and more. The opening number, which the song is There Was a Little Girl, begins in 1960 with her stage acting debut, but the action focuses on tumultuous relationship with her father and his stardom, as well as his marriage to a younger woman.
Well, she did have a hard time with her father. He didn't agree with what she did.
Mm-hmm. Jane's rise to fame is documented through the song montage, Period of Adjustment. As we arrive at the beginning of the Vietnam War, the song Barbarella, where parallels of her as an anti-war activist and as a sexy space hero, how do you say that? Heroine.
I mean, I could go for some.
Sure. Barbarella are drawn. This is where the titular song of the musical, Hanoi Jane, occurs, and the first act ends with Jane dressed as Barbarella, posing, sitting on an anti-aircraft gun, as American patriots hurl insults at her and tear down their Jane Fonda pin-ups from their lockers. Act 2 opens in the late 1970s, and the song Fun with Dick and Jane, where Jane has
Like that film.
effectively... Huh?
I like that film.
Good for you. Where Jane has effectively boycotted from American culture for her anti-war protests and is introduced to some powerhouse women in order to make a film, and they become fast friends. Dolly Parton and Lily Tomlin, and the song 9 to 5 plays, and she realizes the importance of female relationships as opposed to her relationships she had with her multiple husbands.
And they make the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Jane also starts her massive popular workout video trend, where she receives more criticism for bringing attention to the female body with the song The Morning After. After the speculation and attention her body has drawn her throughout her career, she is devastated to discover she has breast cancer. And the song Peace, Love and Misunderstanding is played. After a long road to recovery, she reassesses her life and her platform of fame and decides she can use it for more global issues. The final scene of the play cuts to 2019, to the recent protests in Washington, D.C., where Jane wears her flaming red coat and stands among the other environment protesters. She is promptly arrested and sings her final song, I'd Like to Thank the Academy, where she thanks the world for her recognition in acting, but also urges that there is more work to be done in the world, and that we can all do it together if we stop pitting each other against one another. Aw, that was quite good.
I'd see it.
Yeah, that's really
It's kinda,
nice.
yeah, it's kind of weird that I can't remember any sort of Jane Fonda like biopic plays or movies.
Yeah. You know what that kind of reminds me of? I saw this really good film the other day that was an Australian-American film called I Am Woman that was about the
yeah.
story of Helen Reddy. Yeah, who was another big feminist icon. And I can definitely see those two films really, well, film and stage play really being similar. Yeah. So I dig it. And like I said, I actually saw Barbarella for the first time the other night with my housemates. And
you loved it.
let's just say, you know, the math mass, and the Great Tyrant and Death by Budgies was definitely interesting and not what I was expecting.
It's one of those films that's so bad. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't make that any other time than like when they made it.
Yeah, no, it was definitely of its time in the 60s, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh god.
Actually,
Oh, do you have
60
any
might be-
pills?
Yeah, 60s.
I've got pills.
Yep.
What the fuck?